So, welcome back, everybody, to our weekly recap of American Horror Story Cult. My name is Ray Fluck. I work the television beat for Bleeding Cool, and we're going to be looking at the penultimate episode of this season, Charles Manson in Charge. And again, as we go through this, if there's anything you agree or don't agree with, don't hesitate. Leave some comments down below or hit me up on my social media contacts. But we're going to jump right in. Yeah, believe it or not, on a side note, we are actually recapping the second to the last episode of the season. Yes, believe it or not, we're actually getting to the end of American Horror Story. You're watching this on Tuesday, which means later on tonight, we're going to be doing a live blog of the finale. Please make sure to join us. We got an interesting director and writer that I'm going to talk about at the end of this recap that'll definitely make the finale something interesting to check out. But we're going to dive right into it. Again, I have my handy-dandy notepad. For those of you who've been sending in names for what I should be calling my notepad, thank you. For about a third of you, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's just nasty. It's just dirty. But I do appreciate the contributions. Okay, we start off with a flashback. Start with a flashback to the final debate in the Clinton-Trump election in 2016, and we're seeing Winter with two of her girlfriends watching the debate and talking about Hillary Clinton as Kai is hammering away on her laptop and just finally snaps and starts challenging one of Winter's girlfriends regarding her opinion about Clinton and how good of a president she would be, and Kai goes into full-on Trump mode in regards to he's needed, it's what our country needs, that women need to be more supported and need to be listening, and Winter's friend just verbally rips Kai to shreds, just emasculates him, shreds his viewpoints and everything to the point where he just snaps and slaps her. And she freaks out, saying that she's going to sue him. They leave. Winter goes off on Kai, like, "What are you doing? What are you thinking?" Again, no excuse or anything like that, but at least we've seen some of the backstory previously that we know what's been leading Kai up to this point. Again, no excuse. But we see what started it and what's leading him down this road. It gives us at least a little bit more background and understanding. So we find out that Kai, about 2 weeks or so after this incident happens, that Kai's been assigned to anger management, and lo and behold, guess who is his anger management counselor? Yeah, wait for it. It's Bibi. So now we know where Kai has gotten his understanding of the Scum Manifesto and the I guess the philosophy or the religion of Valerie Solanas. He has basically been carrying that belief in him since he met with Bibi back well before this cult thing started. So he's been carrying that around. Now, whether he's functioning under the Scum Manifesto or something completely different, we're going to have to pay attention to this episode. But we see already that the seeds were set a while ago. But is this Bibi pulling the strings, or is this something that Kai has twisted into his own belief system? Again, we're going to find out real soon. But we go to now, and we see Kai outside. He is having a campaign rally with all of his, lack of a better phrase, Hitler Youth surrounding him. We're seeing this campaign moment from the perspective of protesters who've already started putting the word out there about what's going on in the community, the fact that the internet's being shut down, that the flow of information is being controlled by Kai and essentially the city council under Kai's thumb. And we start to see the cracks in Kai's plan. You know, these rallies aren't going as smoothly as possible. Protesters are willing to confront them and are still getting their message out there, even if it's getting around the firewalls of the community. So we see things going not so well. Kai loses his speaker. He ends up getting maced. It does not look good for him. And in the process of these stresses, these things he's not expecting, we start to see his paranoia grow. He's starting to suspect more and more that the federal government is out looking for him. He's starting to suspect more and more that others from within are also working against him. So very interesting, we see Kai progressing in the same manner that most of the cult leaders that he's talked about at this point have. So we get to that point. We get to the point where he's pepper sprayed. Then we get a cut to Winter and Allie. And, well, now that Ivy is no longer a consideration, the only thing left really is the dynamic between Winter and Allie. And from Allie's standpoint, I don't think Winter is one of those people she can just, let bygones be bygones and let things go. What's interesting is that in the dynamic between Winter and Allie, there is an assumption that Winter has that she knows Ivy's gone, but she doesn't have any idea that it was Allie. She works under the assumption that it was Kai directly or Kai had one of his people. So there's a great line where I want to make sure I get this right. If something did happen to Ivy, what makes you think it was Kai? And Allie says that directly to Winter, and Winter, I think, starts to bigger picture understand what she's dealing with, but is she starting to understand at a point when it's too late? Because Allie is making her move. Whatever her end game is going to be, she's got this stuff in play, and we'll see that she's got Kai very, very tightly wrapped around. The whole idea about having Kai believing that Oz is his kid really has helped slide Allie into the position of cult mom real, real quickly, very, very quickly. So now we see Kai. He's back at the house, back at the cult compound, and he basically says to everybody, sleeping bags out, boys. He says to the Hitler Youth because it means it's story time, and this is possibly, from my personal standpoint, this is where it gets interesting because now Ryan Murphy has decided to segue into a very, very graphic reenactment of the Manson murders from the late 60s. Charles Manson being played by Evan Peters, who plays Manson several times throughout this episode. But we see a chilling and stark reenactment of the Manson murders. And at first, I'm going to be honest, I'm torn on two parts. On a personal standpoint, there were parts of the episode where I felt like Ryan Murphy was going too graphic and going too far. From a reviewer and from an art appreciation standpoint, I'm glad he did it. Because what in the big picture I've taken out of it is people need to see this because Manson has become too much of a pop culture figure. He's on T-shirts. He's on memes online, and I think people need to remember what a horrible beast this man was and how horrific those crimes were in the late 60s. And the amount of media attention they got during a time where there wasn't even a tenth of the media that we have now. So I appreciate Ryan Murphy going that route. I appreciate Ryan Murphy going with actors that have already been playing roles, and really as much as FX would allow him, not holding back. You know, again, I think people needed to see the brutality of it, specifically the understanding that Sharon Tate was pregnant, and they just didn't give a shit. That this was not about care, this wasn't about compassion, this was about serving Charlie and causing as much damage as you possibly can. They did an excellent job. I don't feel comfortable going into the full details of this. It's something, if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. I would recommend seeing it again to get an understanding of just how graphically honest and true the portrayal was. And I would also recommend that you give a book called Helter Skelter by the late Vincent Bugliosi, who was the DA who actually prosecuted and convicted Charles Manson. Definitely check it out. It will give you some great background information on it and a better appreciation for what Ryan Murphy was trying to get across. So again, it was an incredible scene, effective scene, powerful scene, and I think really, really did the job that Ryan Murphy wanted to get done. Okay, it's now longer story time. We see Kai is now at the end of his story. He screams about how he wants a night of 1,000 Tates. And that segues into Gary and a number of the Hitler Youth making their way to a women's health clinic. And making their way to a women's health clinic, we're starting to wonder, like, it seems kind of odd that Gary gets in, but the rest of the Hitler Youth don't. And Gary's wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. Then we see what the deal is. That Gary is basically being offered up as a sacrificial lamb. For the bigger plan. When Kai says night of 1,000 Tates, he's not talking about killing 1,000 people. He's talking about sending a message that will be the equivalent of what Charles Manson was trying to do. And Gary ends up finding himself confronted with the clown cult, and he asks Kai, who takes off his mask, why, what have I done? And Kai tells Gary that he's doing this, sacrificing for the greater good of the group, that he will be remembered for this, that this will be a lasting impression that he will have for the greater good. The typical lines of bullshit that cult leaders tend to peddle to believers to get them to essentially give up of themselves, things that the cult leader would never, ever do because of the narcissism behind it. So again, we see Gary getting stabbed, and now we see what the plan is. The plan was Gary is killed, propped up in front of the women's clinic. There is a message scrawled there that is supposed to, I guess, somehow imply like an Antifa type organization or some militant pro-abortion organization had killed Gary and scrawled this message promoting abortion and everything else. It's a little heavy-handed, and I think the plan speaks of where Kai's brain is going at this point. What I find particularly telling is Hope is there broadcasting live, and she invites, of course, Councilman Kai Anderson on, but Hope is so beaten down at this point, she's not even able to do her news reports effectively for what Kai wants, and Kai notices it. But again, with Hope, it's that fire that Kai needed, he pretty much extinguished. Now he's angry that he can't get that fire back from her. That's again, and I think that's Ryan Murphy showing, look, you can have this paradise of a cult, but eventually it all goes to hell. Look what the end game was for each one of those cult leaders, and I think Kai is a living embodiment of that right now. So Kai, back at the compound, full hallucinations, starts talking to his brother, starts regretting that he killed his brother, and then all of a sudden we start to get to the truth, and the truth being that Bibi isn't happy with what Kai's doing, but that Kai has never been really behind Bibi's belief, even from the very beginning. And it's a very telling line where Kai says to Bibi, "You've you've awoken me to the power of pissing people off." See, Bibi wants Kai to create so much nonsense with his Trump and stuff like that that the damn walls of women's rage come crumbling down and that women just scorch earth and take control. Bibi's got a problem is that Kai's pissing everybody off and she can't have that. But Kai is pretty much telling her right now, I'm above and beyond what your philosophy is. This turd right here, he gets it. He gets the joke, he gets the punchline, he gets everything in between. And his anger and his rage is to scorch earth everything and everybody. Bibi doesn't really have any time for that. But of course, Bibi's not going to get really a chance to kind of take care of that because, surprise, surprise, Allie blows Bibi away. Yep, that's right. Allie blows Bibi away, which automatically A shows that she is concerned for Kai and she saved him. Plus, she has this kind of like icing on the cake, which is she rolls up with this little device she claims that she found. Um, and of course, that feeding into Kai's paranoia even more. So now he's leaning harder to Allie because Allie's the mother of his child, quote unquote. Allie saved him from Bibi. Allie finds his thing. So of course, Allie's becoming the source of the only thing that believes him at this point. Um, it's an interesting dynamic because then it segues to Kai and Winter, and I think this harkens back to the confrontation between Allie and Winter earlier, where we see Kai cutting his hair. Winter is helping him. There is a loving, sweet exchange between them as brother and sister until you realize it's not so loving in the sense that Kai knows what Winter's plan is. Winter's plan to get Hope out of there, to get herself out of there, to get away from Kai for a while. Kai's paranoia and the Manson influence sees Winter as the one who's been the problem all along. He takes her downstairs, has her in front of the group, gives her opportunities to confess to something that she has no ability to confess, and she realizes that at that moment that it's over. You can see it in Winter's eyes, the fact that Kai has just gone too far, that's no longer her brother anymore. That's not the guy who tried to save those people in that house and saved her. So in a sense, you get the feeling that Winter is conceited and is ready to give herself up. She knows she's not going to live out of this. And for what we get is that from a very personal, intimate standpoint, Kai strangles Winter to death. At least seems like it. This is American Horror Story, so we never know. But it appears that Kai strangles Winter to death in front of everybody, which just really just drives the point home. But then we get to the very end, where we see this has happened, we see the after effects of it, and then shock, shock, shock. It turns out Speedwagon all along has been the mole. We know this because Speedwagon goes running out to a car and is flipping out and tears the microphone off of him and is just losing it. And then for our double shock, guess who joins him in the passenger seat? It's Allie, who says the simple words, "Hello, Speedwagon." And then that's it. Not sure how to interpret Speedwagon's face. I don't think Allie's going to be turning over Speedwagon, but you never know. But this may be just the end game that Allie wants. Ivy's already gone. She just wants to be with Oz, and she knows she on her end will have to scorch earth everybody to get the happiness that she wants. So that's where we're left. We're essentially left with Kai spiraling out of control. He's losing supporters left and right. Allie has her own plans going on. We don't know how much information Speedwagon has already been feeding to somebody, but that's how we're set up going into tonight's 11th and final episode for this season. Great again. Thank you guys for joining me. I know this was a little long. There was a lot going on, and I especially wanted to talk about the Manson stuff. But if you have any questions or concerns or anything you want to add, anything I missed, comment down below. Please, definitely. I read all of your stuff. Sometimes I even comment. Sometimes I will just take it to heart, and you'll see the adjustments here. Also, you can hit me up on social media. Let me know, too. This is also going to be posted on YouTube, so you can also let me know there also. But again, thank you guys for joining me. Don't hesitate to join me tonight for Cult Following. It is our last live blog of the season. As we take a look at the last episode, I look forward to you guys joining me then. We're going to be starting unofficially at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and officially at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the show starts. So again, don't hesitate. Join me. Thank you guys. Awesome. You rock. And I will see you guys tonight.